Hi guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Neeladri Mukherjee and I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I practice here in Guelph, Ontario. So the most commonly asked question, at least to me, is that how easy is it to get a visit visa to Canada these days? And it's an interesting question, and I believe it's a very relevant question in today's date because, well, logically speaking, getting a visit visa to any country should not be that difficult because your purpose is to just to visit the country and go back home, right? For example, if you apply for a Schengen visa, it is not that difficult to get a visa and it's really hard to get a refusal. But if you apply for a visa to the US, if you apply for a visa to New Zealand, Australia, or Canada, it is probably a little difficult at this point in time, at least, to get a visa, to get a tourist visa, even at the first attempt, regardless of whether you have any relations living in Canada, whether you have your friends living in Canada, or you're coming here just to visit without knowing anybody. It has become a completely technical application. It was always a technical application, but the complexity has increased manifold in my opinion. And let's just see what we can do to make sure that my attempt or your attempt to visit this application is being done correctly in the first attempt itself. So while making a visit visa application, we have to understand that it's more of a mindset change in my opinion, that being a visitor, for example, being a potential visitor to Canada, even if your intention is just to visit Canada and leave Canada, right? You might want to see Toronto, you might want to see Vancouver, go to Banff, go to Jasper, go to Nova Scotia and go back home. Or your intention is to come here and give birth in Canada, or your intention is to meet employers here in Canada, or whatever, right? It should always be kept in mind that the officers are reviewing the application from the legal perspective, and you have to satisfy under you have to satisfy the IRPR 179, and that IRPR, that section of the IRPR, along with a couple of clauses, the main clauses that is telling you is that you have to satisfy the officer that you will leave Canada at the end of your stay. As long as you are able to prove that you will leave Canada at the end of your stay, it doesn't matter whether you actually leave Canada or not, you have to prove that you will leave Canada. And as long as you are successful in proving in terms of documentation, in terms of your statement of purpose, in terms of your submission letter or letter of explanation, you're able to prove that yes, you will leave Canada at the end of the authorized period of your stay, you will get the visa. But more often than not, at least I see, is that the number of people that are not able to prove that they will leave Canada is more than the number of people that are able to prove that they will leave Canada. In other words, the number of people facing rejections is way higher, way higher up as compared to the number of people that are getting the visa on day one. And I could also tell you from my experiences that Canadian PRs, when they're applying for the visit visa of their parents, are getting rejections. Canadian PRs, when they're applying for a visit visa of their own siblings, are getting rejections. Why? Because they're not simply able to satisfy Section 179 of the IRPR. Is it easy to satisfy Section 179? Yes, if you know what to write in the letter of explanation, if you know what to write in the submission letter. No, if you do not know what to write, and if you write something incorrectly, obviously, you know what, when an officer reviews the application, we all know that there is a digital and artificial intelligence in place. That intelligence just scans through information that sees that whether you have all the information that's been provided in the proper manner, and once you do, your file goes to the immigration officer. What an immigration officer does is that he just opens the letter of explanation in the first place. By reading a couple of lines in the letter of explanation, the officer will then come to know whether your application is being presented in a proper manner or not, and then the officer really goes through the documents and all the other checklist and everything, because reading a letter of explanation and making a decision is way easier than going through all your bank statement and everything else and then arriving at a decision. I'm not saying by any means that they make a decision just on reading the letter of explanation. It's obviously a combination of your document and the submission letter, but if you come to me for a consultation by reading the first one or two lines in the submission letter or the letter of explanation, I will come to know why really you have faced the rejection. So is it easy to get a tourist visa to Canada these days? Unfortunately, no. Regardless of your intention, and your intention is on your own, your deeds are also on your own. You just have to prove in form of documentation, because 99.9% of the times you will not be called upon for an interview, unlike in the States, that you will leave Canada at the end of the stay, right? So prove it in terms of the funds, prove it in terms of your home ties, prove it in terms of your job, your vehicle, your family ties, and there could be a whole gamut of things, right? For example, when I write a submission letter for a client, my submission letter, even for a tourist visa application, is usually 3 to 4 pages long, and sometimes it is even 5 pages long. Now, if you are wondering what do I write in the 5-pager submission letter when it comes to a tourist visa application. Well, if you are one of my clients and if you have worked with me, you know what I write, right? I cite the legal sections, I cite the case laws. If somebody has not traveled before, and then I will cite a relevant case law wherein the Supreme Court judge has said that a lack of travel does not tantamount to an obvious rejection. If you do not have sufficient funds, yet you are able to prove somehow that you will leave Canada at the end of your stay, and sufficient is a very, very relative term, then I will cite a relevant case law wherein the judge has said something like that. So it's really a rigorous process. It's not easy, at least in my opinion, by any means. And I hope by now you know that it's a technical process. And if you're confident in doing this on your own, obviously, most people welcome to do that. But if you think you lack confidence, even slightest of confidence, it may make sense to even come for a consultation with anybody licensed and let that person have you gone through everything else, and then you submit the application rather than doing a mistake, like making a mistake on your own and then resubmitting the file. Because a Canadian visa, all we have to understand is that is a privilege, is not your right, and a first attempt is your best attempt. So the number of reapplications that you make, your chances of acceptance gets that much lower. Having said that, a properly made reapplication also works, but our objective is to make sure that we are able to submit a perfect application from day one so that we get the visa in hand day one, right? I hope that makes sense. If you need professional assistance, drop me a line, contact@novonation.ca. Shall be glad to assist. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.